The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of Spaced Out Radio or Spaced Out Radio Limited is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced?
Stop right there!
From high atop the mountains of British Columbia to you listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
They let us play with all our toys, they let us think that we're big boys, they let us make a lot of noise, but we ain't move the world. They let us think we're Superman.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, on iTunes and TuneIn. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, or on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show.
I try to act so cool, but you know I'm just a fool for you. I will stop till I reach the top just to be there with you.
Dave, oh Dave, are you playing with Bigfoot and aliens again?
Dad, you gotta stop haunting the ghost. It's scaring them.
All right, seriously, put down the pointy sticks.
Okay! Game on! Game on! Game on!
The password is...
All right.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio. Mr. Bumblefoot, Dave is ready for liftoff.
I try to act so cool, but you know I'm just a fool for you.
Seriously, Dave? Really? Aren't you a little old for a tinfoil hat?
Hello, Toby. Bye-bye. Nephew. Bye-bye.
Please take your seat about all. We're with you. It's time to take off. Start. 2, 1. Boost ignition and lift off.
I'm such a lucky guy, 'cause after all this time, it's like the deeper I go, the deeper I fall. The deeper I go, the deeper.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, kicking off another great week, and it's good to have you along for the ride on this Monday, May 29th, Tuesday, May 30th, if you're on the East Coast or across the pond. Hope you had a great day. We are live right here in the Great White North in the heart of central British Columbia as we are here 7 days a week. Let's welcome in everyone listening in on our terrestrial radio stations, WQEE 99 Rock Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. We're live on spacedoutradio.com, on Spreaker, KTLK, The Fringe FM, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas, the High Plains Talk Radio Network, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Hope you had your horns up because we were rocking to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal, formerly of Guns N' Roses, currently of Art of Anarchy. Bumblefoot is the official sound of Spaced Out Radio. Now, you can follow us all over social media. You can give us a shout out on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, you can follow me at Dave Scott SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download our shows from iTunes. We're also on RadioGuide.fm, TalkStream Live, Player.fm, and Stitcher. Our website is SpacedOutRadio.com. And if you head over to Patreon.com for as low as $1 a month, you can become a patron of SOR. Now, if you want to take part in this show, you got to do me a favor, because we don't take phone calls here, but we do take your questions from any of the chat rooms that I'm going to give you. Go to spacedoutradio.com, click on Listen Live, and sign up for a free chat room. We're on the Revolution Radio chat room, over on Spreaker, or on the UPRN chat room, or maybe you're like Bob and Gail and a few others. Seth, will include you in there as being part of the SOR Space Travelers Club. Or if you're on Twitter, be like Deb. Use the hashtag SpacedOutRadio, and I will get to your questions and comments in there as well. If you head to our website for just $5 a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. And as of right now, we have the Spaced Out Radio store. It's open 24/7. And pick up a t-shirt, poster, sticker. We're going to make Carl the Alien candles as well. So if you want to burn up Carl, you can do that. We also have a news section called The Encounter Online I want you to check out, dealing with everything paranormal, strange, maybe a little political involved as well, courtesy of our editors Eric Markham and Ever Themer. You can check out my latest blog there as well. And if you've had an experience you can't explain, do me a favor. Fill out an SOR Sightlines report. We want to hear your experiences. It's time to bring back Butch Witkowski from UFOcop.com for his monthly segment on Spaced Out Radio, what we call around these parts Strange Days, which happens the final Monday of the month. Butch is a retired police officer and military veteran who, years ago, jumped both feet into the deep end of the paranormal pool. Aliens, cryptids, ghosts, you name it, he and his team are on the weird and strange experiences people are having. The experiences are out there. The experiences are happening. But why and what's causing these sightings and phenomena is still the mystery. A mystery that Butch still doesn't know if he will be able to solve, which keeps him going full-time 7 days a week. The idea that people are seeing Bigfoot or coming across dogmen or werewolves or being taken by aliens is something he wants to solve. The evidence is there. The evidence doesn't lie. And if it does, well, Butch and his team have the experience and the tens of thousands of dollars of equipment to prove or disprove any story. Sure, he becomes old hat when it comes to these subjects, but his no-nonsense approach to the paranormal keeps the fables in check and the experiences as clear as day. Butch Witkowski, I can't get any more dramatic than that. How are you, my friend?
I was just going to say, that was pretty dramatic. I'm fine. How are you doing?
I am very good. Butch, I want to start off by sending the entire Spaced Out Radio family and listeners condolences to you and your family at the passing of your brother on the weekend. You mean a lot to this show, and for you to go through something like this is absolutely, you know, I don't even have the words for it, my friend. I've never had to experience something like that. But I want you to know that we love you around here, and I'm going to get everybody here, if you don't mind, to send you and your family a big prayer tonight, so that way you can feel the love from the SOR family to your family.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Well, you know what? This is one of the rare episodes that you and I are doing, Butch, where when we talked earlier, we actually forgot to figure out what the hell we're talking about tonight.
Oh, there's lots to go. We could start out with Chicago, Illinois, and the flying reptilians and Batmen and Mothmen and everything but dragons they're seeing out there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And we're going to get into that tonight, but I want to hit things off first. Okay. You used to be a part of MUFON Pennsylvania and work with John Ventry. John recently got his mouth in hot water, or his fingers in hot water, regarding some very racial statements that he placed on Facebook. And I don't know if you feel comfortable in talking about that, or if you want to go down that road, but I'm just curious in regards to MUFON and what they are doing, because as far as I read last, they haven't suspended him, they haven't done anything, but I'm curious what your thoughts are on this subject, because I know you, of all people, as former part of Pennsylvania MUFON, would be following this.
Well, I'm not going to go down the road too far, but what I'm going to say is, you know, there are many, many, many researchers and investigators in MUFON, both in Pennsylvania and in other states, that deserve more than what they got. And I don't want people to think that just because someone made some statements that were out of line, that it should be held against anybody else in MUFON. They are a dedicated bunch. They work hard. I have some involvement with a few of them. They have always been considerate, very hardworking. Can't hold them responsible for higher-ups' decisions. No more than when I worked for a Fortune 500 company, I could blame the senior VP or the senior whatever in any department. So I just hope people will just kind of think of it as, okay, somebody screwed up, it got handled, and it's really up to the higher-ups to take it wherever they're going to go with it. But I saw some disparaging remarks on Twitter and on Facebook and LinkedIn about MUFON members. Now, that is not only uncalled for, but it's just not fair. What people say or what people's feelings are or what their feelings are really doesn't reflect on the group in general. They are, again, like I said, the ones I know and the ones I work with and the ones I continue to work with. They're very hardworking, they're honest, they're forthright. I mean, I just can't say enough about them. So this will go wherever it goes, and I just want to make sure that people, when they're looking at this stuff, they're not thinking that everybody that's a MUFON member, whether they're just a member, that gets the journal, or they're an investigator, or chief investigator, or state section director, or state director, that they get all put into one nutshell, and then they pretty much get hammered for something that they have no control over. And it was very sad that, the minute it came out, I mean, everybody started going right after MUFON. Look, MUFON's not perfect. No group is perfect. If we were all perfect, we would have had a lot of things solved many, many years ago. But I'm going to just let them handle it. It's their problem. I'll keep sticking up for the MUFON membership, because I truly believe that there are people in there that really put it all out to do what they're supposed to do, how they're supposed to do it, and to get it done, to come up with some kind of an answer, good or bad or indifferent. And unfortunately, look, you're always going to have naysayers. I mean, MUFON could be 100% perfect. You'll still have a bunch out there that'll say they suck. We could do it 100%, and there'll be somebody out there that says we suck. So that's just the way it is. But I'm hoping that with some of the changes that MUFON says they're going to make, and within their rules and regulations and stuff like that, that this will all be gone away with shortly, hopefully, and everybody can get back to work. Quit bitching and get out in the field.
Well, it's still a topic, though, that we do have to bring up, because it does involve this field. And, it's unfortunate something like that happened. And, it's sad because you don't want to see that in any field. I mean, let's face it. There's a lot of political upheaval and there's a lot of political unrest with a lot of people right now. And everybody is slinging names left, right, and center where, we're trying to figure out, what aliens are and where Bigfoot is hiding and all that. That's what we're trying to do in this field. So in order to all of a sudden have this kind of black mark things, do you think on the MUFON side, because they do have their majority of critics out there, that this is something that they can survive without any inaction?
No, they're going to have to take some type of action, whether it's a rule change or how MUFON is presented by state directors and state section directors and investigators. That's probably going to take place. What was said was just, in my mind, it was just a wow. And, but I just saw immediately that it went from that statement or statements to attacking the people in the field. And in all the time I've been involved with MUFON before and after, I have never heard that before, ever. Nothing like that, nothing even close to that. And it was surprising, a little shocking. But again, I think that if they don't do anything, they won't survive. But for an outfit that big, I'm sure they're going to do something to rectify the way statements are made on the Facebook and Twitter accounts and stuff like that of these people. Now, again, they can't stop somebody from speaking what they want to speak about. But if they're doing it under the banner of the organization, I'm pretty sure they can take care of that. That can be stopped immediately.
And really, that is the problem of social media today, because at what point do you say, I have my First Amendment rights in the United States to the freedom of speech, but you also wear a very public hat, and John has been a very large player in the MUFON organization, with television shows, with his research, with books, with being very highly outspoken on the talk shows and the Paracon circuit. We're not talking about, Joe Blow, who started at MUFON a year and a half ago because he saw a UFO when he was 12. We're talking about somebody who's a major player here.
Yeah, and that's the sad part of it. If that's the way he truly feels, then, if he wants to go out and do that on social media under his own name, that's fine. There's nothing you can do about that. Like you said, First Amendment rights, you can speak and say whatever you want to say. But I guess where it gets, or got bad, was because it was said under, like you said, he's a very well-known guy. He's not somebody just popped up overnight. This guy's been around since, I think, 96, if I'm not mistaken, and he's been state director since 2007, maybe 7, around there. So he's well known. And like you said, television shows, books, conferences. There's nobody in MUFON that holds 3 conferences a year like this guy. I understand they're very successful conferences. He always has top-notch speakers. But I think the thing that bothered me the most is, first of all, there is nothing that anybody's going to say now because the water's over the dam. Mm-hmm. The thing that really upset me the most was when people started just bashing MUFON in general. Now, are there some legitimate gripes with MUFON? Yes, of course. Are there some legitimate gripes with just about any group out there? Yes, of course. When I tell somebody their picture's no good or it's not what they say it is, I just went from becoming the savior of the world to the biggest jerk in the world pretty much instantly. So that just comes with the territory. hopefully, like I said, MUFON will get track of this. They'll change whatever they have to change to make sure it doesn't happen again. They're not going to stop anybody on their own personally doing it, but if they're attaching the organization's name or their title, whether it's an investigator or chief investigator or just even a regular member, if they're mentioning MUFON's name, then, MUFON has to have in their rules a disclaimer that you can't do that. And I think that's going to happen. Just a little bit that I've read about it. I've tried not to get involved in it.
Yeah.
And I just think it's going to happen. They'll make some changes. There'll be some new rules and regulations on, if you're going to speak, go ahead and speak. Can't stop you from speaking, but don't do it under our banner. And that's a good thing.
Do you think, though, and I'm really surprised that I don't know if it's got any public press down there. I know up here I didn't see it when I went looking for it. I only saw basically it going around, and it hit my groups and it hit my wall a couple of times, well, more than a couple of times. But did this get any public press down there? Because we're so fringe. And everything is and everybody are so fickle already about what we do. Do you think that this, and I'm not trying to make a mountain out of the molehill here, Butch, but do you think this gave us more of a black eye, or are they just saying the weirdos are acting up again?
That's exactly what they're saying. The weirdos are at it again. I didn't see anything major, news or anything like that on it, but then again, I wasn't looking for it either. But, of course, the blogs and websites, they went nuts. The skeptical websites went berserk. I don't know if they lost any members. There were some members that were on there said they were packing it in, they were quitting, or they weren't going to re-up next year, or whatever the case is. I hope that the people that are involved with these, looking at these sites, whether it's the blogs or websites or whatever, give a little consideration to, if you're a good investigator and somebody made a mistake and you're not part of it, give it a second thought of why you would want to leave. You would surely want to stick around if you're happy with what you're doing. And again, there is no way anybody can stand up and say, well, this guy said this or this guy said that, and I'm going to go after him, and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. That's fine. Do what you got to do. But another thing I noticed was that a number of the people especially on Twitter, that were complaining are not MUFON members and are no friends of MUFON by any way, shape, or form, or by any stretch of the imagination. But as far as major stuff being picked up by newspapers or media, I haven't seen any of that. I haven't even heard of anything like that. So, as an ex-MUFON member and a person that really thought that, or still thinks that, basically they're a good organization. They just need some cleaning up in certain areas, like cleaning the corners out or dusting off the shelves or whatever, and get things back on track. And kind of put the investigators that are out there doing the job, and state directors, state senate directors, whatever, give them what's due. I mean, this to me, it set MUFON back. There's no doubt about that. I mean, I haven't seen anything in the last few days, although I've been a little busy and really haven't been looking, but I didn't see anything in the last few days. I'm not saying it blew over by any stretch of the imagination. It's probably deeper now into the membership instead of being out in the public. So once they get that all dealt with and cleaned up and apologies are made or whatever they're going to do, and regulations may be changed, my hope is that maybe, just maybe, MUFON will come out a little better through this than when it started.
Well, let's move on here because, we do have some weird stories and strange days that have been going on. Now, you mentioned Chicago. I heard recently from Everett Thiemer from the Encounter Online here that Chicago has all of a sudden started having reports of Mothman showing up.
Well, they have reports of Mothman-type creatures. They have reports of Batman-type creatures. They have reports of flying reptilians. They have reports of flying humanoids. If it's in the sky, they got it. And it's all centered around pretty much the general Chicago area and Cicero, Illinois area was the latest one, seen by a trucker who was getting loaded up at a bread company. And he saw it, and a couple other people, I guess, saw it. And the descriptions are similar, but not alike. The very first one was a lady walking her dog in a park, and she saw a very tall shadow, which she either thought, first of all, was either a tree or a bush, but then it kind of stood up and turned around, and she could see, the formation of wings. Some describe bat wings, some describe wings like a dragon, some are describing large bird wings. Nobody's gotten any photographs yet. There are quite a number of researchers out there working on it. There's a couple of really good ones that live right in that area that are on it. And all the reports are fairly new. They only started a week or so ago. And so the information is still coming in. It's been seen over the water, I think, twice. It's been seen on the ground. Some workers that were taking a break at work or in the parking lot, smoke break, thought they saw what they described as an extremely large owl. And now, when you stop a second there, an owl is a big bird. When they're standing up, people think owls like the little things they see on their shelf they have in the kitchen. Well, owls are a lot bigger than that, and when they open up their wings, they're almost like eagle size. So what these folks are seeing, nobody has a finger on it yet, but one of the things that I was talking to a guy about the other day was the descriptions are not exactly the same. They're different in size, shape, color, wingspan, type of wing. But these reports of this type of a flying, whatever it is, flying entity, have been recorded for a long, long time. They've been recorded in western Pennsylvania. They've been recorded in West Virginia, Kentucky, I think upper New York State along the Canadian line. So what they're seeing could be, just mass misidentification, or it could be something that is new to the area, which at this point, I certainly don't need anything new. We've got another quadruped report that matches one that we got back around December, which is totally different from the bipedal. And it is very large. One lady, with all the last reports, said that she was looking at something that weighed a couple 100 pounds and was almost 8 foot long on all fours. Very large wolf-looking creature. And we have the one back from December that almost describes the same thing. He didn't give us a length, but he gave us, weight, very heavy weight of 100 to 150 pounds, wolf-like head, kind of a hyena-like mane behind the neck. This one described the same thing. So I don't know what that is. Could it be just a large wolf? Absolutely. It could be. But where they're being seen is kind of odd because wolves in Pennsylvania are mostly seen in northern Pennsylvania, in the really heavily wooded areas. They're not seen, like down into more inhabited areas. And when you get from, especially in central Pennsylvania, or in eastern Pennsylvania, when you go north in this state, the further north you go, the less population you have, and there's no big cities up there. They're all just little hamlets and towns. which is kind of weird because when you get to the south central part of the country, of the state, we have the most Bigfoot reports. Although they're kind of scattered, there are some in that area, but very few. They mostly mass down in the western and southwestern part of our state. I don't know what these folks are seeing. We were scheduled to go out this week, but the issue in the family came up, so we'll be going out next weekend on our fourth expedition. And we're going to be heading up to where we had the first quadruped report, and then we'll be heading up to our research area, and then we're going to be heading over to the newest report we got to talk to the witness and see exactly where and what she was seeing. But there's all kind of stuff going on, and it's not just in Pennsylvania. It's all over the country. Bigfoot reports out in Northern California. You got skunk ape reports down in Florida. Large snakes. What was it this morning? Somebody down in Georgia, I believe it was, went to take a dive into the pool this morning. The only problem with that was it was North Carolina. They wanted to take a dive in the pool this morning to cool off, and unfortunately there was a 9 or 10 foot alligator sitting in there waiting for them. So I don't know what's got all this stuff on the move, and I really don't even know what it is. I mean, the bipedal canine, we pretty much got that down to every description is the same. Everybody says the same thing. It's seen in certain areas, not in others. These two quadruped reports, they're as the crow flies, they're approximately 65 miles apart. Could it be the same one? It's possible, but the first time it was seen, there were 2 of them seen. So is there more than one, and how many of them are there? It's very strange right now. I've been down to the farm where we saw the distortions. They're still there. They've moved from the roof of the barn, the chicken barn, over to the dirt mound. I've pretty much got in the back of my head that they've been there for a very, very long time, and they're not leaving, and they are indigenous or attached to the indigenous somehow.
How do you believe what people are telling you? There's a lot of funky stories out there, Butch, and I know we've discussed this before in the past, but in reality, some of these stories seem to be getting so far-fetched that how are you able to crack the code on whether or not they're real or fake?
Well, one of the very first things is, if you're just going to talk to them by phone, or you're just going to talk, or, send them an email or do that kind of stuff, you're not going to get anywhere. You need to go talk to the person face to face, where it happened, on the same spot. Does what they tell you on the scene match what they told you in the report? Looking at them, talking to them, their demeanor. I mean, when you get a full-grown man crying, pretty much, and shaking when he's telling you a story about something he saw that he can't identify, I tend to believe that guy. When I get another person who's describing, something really, let's say, fantastic that happened, but there's jokes being intertwined with it and laughter and, maybe I didn't see what I saw, and, pretty soon you're starting to put together this guy's full of crap. Or where he described it happening, there's no way it could have happened that way. He said, well, there's a hill that's very close, and you're looking, and it's a mountain that's maybe 30, 40 miles away. Or he said he's right along the woodland, but the closest woodland to where he was standing is, like 10 miles down the road. There's no way he would see that. So there are little things, but the ones that always have gotten me and have always turned out to be pretty much what I would say valid reports are the ones where the person that's making that report to you face to face can barely get it out. You don't have to ask them any questions. All you got to do is, okay, just tell me what happened. And they're almost verbatim of what they wrote to you maybe 3 or 4 or 5 months ago. And the tricksters, the hoaxsters, they're pretty easy to figure out, was just like when I used to have to write a traffic ticket and somebody would say to me, well, I said, did you see the speed sign? And they say, yeah, I saw a speed sign, but I didn't see you. So some of the stories are fantastic. I don't shy away from them, but I always take them with a grain of salt, and I'm a little more inquisitive when I look at those or when I'm talking to somebody about those. And then there's the ones that you get that, you're looking at them and you're scratching your head going like, is this possible? And then you get there and you're talking to the folks, if it's multi-witness, more than one person, and everything they're telling you is like, just like they told it to you in the first time they contacted you. Nothing's out of place. Everything they said as it is, like, here's the house, here's the driveway, there's the pond, there's the tree, this is that. And, everything is where it's supposed to be. And they don't hesitate. They don't have to think about it. They relive it. And that's what I've always chalked up as being a pretty good report.
It's so easy to tell the fear or the anxiousness in someone's eyes and with their hands as well. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. When you got, like I said, when you got a full-grown man telling you a story that happened months and months and months before we even got to talk to him. He was on the list, but so many things came up in the meantime that we had to work our way down to his area to get to talk to him and his buddy, who was the other witness. And when we talk to these guys, and, basically it's just, okay, start from scratch. What happened that night? And these guys are full-grown men. The one guy's a big dude. I wouldn't take him on without a baseball bat and his back turned to me. He was shaking like a leaf. Tears welling up in his eyes, stuttering. And he had said something in the report the very first time I read it, and it stuck me, and I just looked at him when he was kind of calmed down a little bit, and I said, so what exactly do you think you saw? And he says, I know what I saw. He said, I saw a werewolf. He said, I don't care what you call it or what the technical term for it was, but I'm telling you, I saw a werewolf. I said, did it have clothes on? He said, no clothing. And he described the whole creature just like everybody else has. And then he had to sit down in my truck. He couldn't even stand up. So, when you encounter a witness like that, you're dealing with somebody that really had an experience that they went through, they can't explain. They're not trying to hide it. They're just telling you exactly what went down, what they saw, what they thought, and now they're throwing it in your lap and saying, okay, go get them. And that's the way it is. On the other hand, one of the reports we got, which I blew off as a hoax, is we got there and wanted to talk to the gentleman that actually saw what he reported he saw. And I've got family members standing there telling me that they can call in Bigfoot anytime they want. They're psychics. They're empaths. They know exactly where they hide, what they do, where they live, what they eat. And, at that point, you just wrote off the whole thing. You listened to the whole story, and we did spend 4 or 5 hours there. But it didn't stop. They were making stuff up as they were going along. But I didn't know of or never heard of a Bigfoot whisperer. So when that started, I kind of looked at my other investigator, and I separated the guy who made the original report from the people that were now going off the deep end. And he got a totally different story. He got the story that he was told the first time, or we were told the first time. When he got back into the group, they were changing the story, and then he was agreeing with them. So I thought, okay, this is a waste of time. Well, thanked them politely and, said we'll keep the report open, and got back in the truck and got a half a mile down the road. I stopped and looked at my investigator, and I said, what do you think? And he just looked at me and went like, bull crap. I said, yep, that's kind of what I figure. Because nothing matched. Where it took place, where it ran, where it hid. They were taking us in a different direction from where it went. They were talking about a mine shaft. Well, there's no mine shaft. There's just an indentation in the woods, like a tree might have died many, many years ago, and it's just a 1 foot deep slump of dirt. which they're trying to tell us is a mine shaft. And then we did look at that when we got back, because we have maps of the mines here in Pennsylvania, and there's no mine that was ever in that area. So out of all the reports we got, we pulled one out that was pretty much, in a galaxy far, far away.
Do you ever get close in your investigations? And what I'm saying by that is, if somebody calls you up, what's the closest you get? Are people usually waiting months and months, or until they're at wit's end and they don't know who to call, or are they waiting an hour to 2 hours? Like, how does that work? How close are you getting, Butch?
The reports that we've gotten on the bipedal canine were pretty, with the exception of the first one, which was, I think, 2 weeks before the guy called. I'm sorry, the second one was 2 weeks. The first guy, he called the same day. The reports after that we had two. The one lady was about 6 months till she actually found out where I was going to be at a conference, and she came to that conference to make a report. And the other gentleman actually went through Lon Strickler at Phantoms and Monsters, who called me and gave me the report, and then we took it from there. But it's usually it's pretty quick. We've had reports of different things, especially Bigfoot and unexplainable type creatures that happened, or the person's relating to me the story, but they might have been 15 or 16 years old when it happened. They're now in their 40s or 50s. And those reports are interesting because at least I can take that report and I can start to look back and see if there are any other reports in that area that might have been, put into a database somewhere. And sometimes they are, and sometimes they're not. But I keep them open because I just never know. I don't know when I have something like, I don't know if I'm holding a piece of gold in this hand or a rock in the other. And I'm very leery to let either one of them go because I don't know. And the people that contact you when something traumatic happens, whether it's a Bigfoot experience or a strange creature or something paranormal or a UFO in the sky, you can tell they want help and they want to understand what they saw, and that's our job to try to help them figure out what they did see, good, bad, or indifferent. I've walked away from people and just after they said, "Do you believe it?" And I'm going like, well, I'm not going to say I do, and I'm not going to say I don't because I didn't see it, but there are other reports of what you saw that I'm aware of, and I'll leave it at that. And then I have people that call back all the time. Did we have anything in the area? Or they may have come across something, or somebody told them a story, and they'll throw it back to us and say, this has nothing to do with my report, but, I was at dinner with these folks and we started talking about this, and somebody else, overheard the conversation. They relayed this information. It's a few miles away from where my sighting was, but I just thought I'd pass it along to you. And they'll give us the name and the information, and we'll get a hold of that person. And that's how you really put a case together. You start out with very little, and then you go from there and, build on it with other reports and background research of the land or the property or the past. And eventually you'll come to some kind of conclusion.
Do the people who are experiencing this, are they new to this type of activity, or have they been experiencers of UFOs, aliens, or ghostly creatures?
No. Everyone that we've gotten, with the exception of all this time now with U4COP since 2009, I think I could probably point two that were prior experiencers. The other people are just, they run the whole gamut. Nurses, lawyers, garage mechanics, hikers, Boy Scouts, Boy Scout leaders, truck drivers. I mean, it's just, they're not the dyed-in-the-wool ufologist or cryptozoologist or paranormal ghost chaser. Pretty much when they're talking to you, they don't even have, you can't say anything technical to them because they don't have any idea what you're talking about. You know, like if I start talking about a flight path of a craft in the sky, they'll go like, well, what do you mean flight path? You know, or horizon drop or weather. I mean, there's just so many things you can ask them that you know they're lost because they've never seen anything like it. And usually those people that give us what we call a good report, if we get any call back from them at all, after a while, it's, have you seen anything or heard anything on my case? They're not calling to tell you they saw it again. But when I get somebody that calls me 5 or 6 times in 2 weeks telling me they're seeing the same thing, and I'm within walking distance of that location, and I got binoculars in my hand or a thermal device, and I don't see anything, and they're telling me it's hovering over this certain area, and I can almost spit on that area, and then I know I'm being fooled.
I can very much understand that. How close, when you get there, are you seeing evidence? And what do you do when you see that evidence? Like, what are you looking for? Because somebody like me would not know what to look for. Yes, I would have my eyes on the ground looking for any footprints. That's only obvious. But as a trained professional, what are you looking for?
Well, one of the things you want to look for first is, has everything that they told you been verified now that you're standing there? Is there a trail? Is there a building? Is there a mountain? Are there trees? You know, do they have an unobstructed view of what they say they saw? I mean, if you're looking, if somebody says they saw, I'm just going to use this now, they see a Bigfoot and it's on this trail and you're standing there and they say, this is exactly where I was and it was right over there, and you're looking through mulberry bushes or a bunch of crop overgrowth that you can't see 10 feet through, but they're describing this thing from head to toe, you know they didn't see what they think they saw. So one of the very first things is to acclimate, the investigator has to acclimate himself to putting himself in their shoes to see exactly what they are looking at. And then where was this creature? Where did you see this? Where's this big tree you talked about? And then they're pointing to a tree that's in the opposite direction, you know, hundreds and hundreds of yards away. And look, people's eyesight is not that good. I don't care if you got 20/20. When you're in the woods, anything can run by you, and you're going to think, oh my God, it's Bigfoot. I mean, a bear, a good-sized deer, an elk, anything. But when you get to the scene and you're standing there and it looks exactly like they described it, you don't have to ask any questions. You're saying, okay, so here's where you were standing and here's where your brother was, and there's the trail. Now, where on the trail did you see this? And he says, if you count 4 trees to your left, there's a little clearing. Can you see the clearing? And I'll go, yeah, I can see the clearing. He says, right there is where I saw what I saw. And at that point, you pretty much got a good feeling anyway that, you know, you're not being screwed off, that somebody did see something. What they saw is another story, but they did see something. But another one that's a real game thrower is when you get to the scene and you drive out in the middle of wherever you're going, and they say, well, I don't really remember where I was, but it was around here somewhere. Look, if I see Bigfoot, personally speaking, I will have a marble marker erected on that spot by daylight. I would not forget where I was, or what I did, or what I saw, or the distances. So when you get somebody on the scene and they don't remember anything all of a sudden, but they gave you this great report 3 days ago, now they don't remember anything, and they basically don't even know where they're at, that's another telltale sign that, you know, you're just wasting your time. But the folks that go out there and they know where they were, they know what they saw, again, not knowing what they saw exactly. But it's just like people with, you know, the paranormal stuff. they hear knocking on the wall. And you let them do their thing, and then you say, well, have you had any electrical work done in the house? Oh, yeah, we had that done about 3 months ago. Well, when did this knocking start? Well, about 3 months ago. And then, get a gauge out of the truck, device, plug it into the wall, and you find out that the hots and neutrals are switched and it's slapping against the wall. So there's some easy things that you can do, but most of the time it's tenacious that gets it done. You've got to just keep asking the questions and hoping that, they're not, giving you some story that they just cooked up overnight at the bar with the boys. I've had very few hoax reports in all my time. I don't know if that's just my demeanor of I'm the guy that will call you out if you do, or people just think that I really will try to help them, which I hope they do. And we've explained some things to people, bolides, meteors, where we had the proof that they had a meteor shower, or sun dogs or stuff like that, or they have a camera issue, and we'll show them what not to do with their camera. Most people, when they take pictures of anything in the sky at night, use a flash. That's the last thing you want to use ever, under any circumstance. When we tell them about using a tripod, if they're going to be looking for Bigfoot, if you're carrying that camera, carry a tripod. They're not that expensive. You can get them at Staples for $12, $15. They're not that heavy. They're aluminum. They're lightweight. If you have a certain research area that you're going to work the research area. Don't go trouncing 5 miles in either direction. You picked out your spot. This is where you think you saw something. This is where you want to research. You want to look on the ground. You want to look for, the different points. Same thing if you're doing ghost hunting. You want to have cameras in every room. You don't want everybody stomping around all through the house. You don't want 25 people on a team. That just kills me, because I see some of these people when they go out. We take very small teams, 4 to 6 at the most. And everybody knows their place. Everybody knows where everybody is and what they're doing. But when you get, I've seen some teams, especially out west, where they'll get, 15, 20 people on a Bigfoot hunt. They're bumping into each other. And everybody's walking around making noise. I learned a long time ago, it's better to sit and be quiet than it is to walk all through the woods at night, So, hopefully, excuse me, we keep getting the type of people that make the reports to us, and the storytellers kind of go by the wayside. If it's a good story, put it on Facebook.
For sure. We only got a couple minutes here before we got to hop out for our first break of the night. And I want to get to a question from Canadian Joe on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio. He is asking, Butch, have you ever heard any reports of dogman or werewolves harming or killing humans?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I have. Would he like that now, or will he wait till after the break?
Well, you know what? Let's get started on it, because we're too far away from just making it a tease.
Okay. In 1977, in Virginia, a gentleman related a story. He was a young lad at the time, in his early teens, lived with his grandfather, mother, grandmother, on a farm. And he was staying over the weekend at their farm. And his grandfather was acting kind of weird and sitting at the window, and he had a weapon with him outside of the window. And when asked what he was doing, what he was looking for, he said, "You don't want to know, just go about your business, never mind." And he just sat there. And then he'd shut the window, and he'd go back, and he'd tell the kid about there are things out there you don't want to know about. It's not good, blah, blah, blah. And next thing you know, the window's open again a little bit. He's got the gun sticking out the window, and he's got lights going on outside the house. And then he shuts it. Next thing you know, this, whatever it was, wolf-looking type thing, was at the window. He saw it. The grandmother saw it, grabbed the kid, kind of got him away from the window. The old man, kind of went out and startled it and took a couple shots at it. It disappeared into the brush. This happened a couple times, like 3 times, I believe. And then the boy and the grandmother, a couple weeks later, again, the boy was staying on the weekend because he lived close, and went into town with his grandmother to pick up some stuff. And when they came back, they were looking for Granddad. They couldn't find Granddad, and the grandmother walked into the barn, and there laid Granddad dead as a snail, pretty tore up. Police were called, and they just said he was attacked by a wild animal.
That's harsh. And you got that in right before we got to go to break. Good for
you. Go.
Good for you. I'm impressed. You had your timing on.
You're killing me, Dave.
Well, we're using that word very profusely tonight coming off of that story. That's for sure.
I'll give you another one when we come back.
Now that's the tease, Butch. That is the tease right there. Butch Witkowski's Strange Days happens the first Monday, or make that the final Monday of every month. Butch's next appearance on this show will be on Monday, June 26th. The weeks seem to go by so quickly, and boom, Butch will be here again. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be back right after this. Coming September 29th to October 1st, the first annual Spaced Out Radio Caribou Paracon. Hi, this is Dave Scott. The event will be held at the Spruce Hills Spa and Resort in 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Come join us for an amazing weekend of speakers talking all things paranormal, UFOs, ghosts, aliens, Sasquatch, intuitiveness. Listen to great speakers like Miriam Delicato, Samantha Mowat, and the crypto guru Ronald Murphy. Get your VIP passes by going to spacedoutradio.com and clicking on the Paracon banner. Come to BC, where the paranormal is waiting for you.
From coast to coast to coast, Blacklight Uncharted is taking on the paranormal across Canada. From ghostly hauntings to the UFOs flying above in conjunction with MUFON Canada, we're closely investigating what's going on in the northern skies and checking out the apparitions that walk among us. Check out our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com. We want to know your thoughts, we want to hear your experiences, and we want you to share your stories. The answers are out there, and we intend to find them.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spacedoutradio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spacedoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
Have you had an experience you can't explain? Had a run-in with ghosts, maybe Bigfoot, or seen lights in the sky? Hi, I'm Mike Schmidt from the SOR Sightlines. I'm here to investigate your sighting. Head to spacedoutradio.com and fill out a report on the Sightlines. All your information is 100% confidential, and I will help you figure out what you've been seeing. File your report, and let's find out the answers together.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Have you got your Cosmic Passport? If you need one, tune in to Cosmic Passport on Spaced Out Weekend. This is Elizabeth Anglin, ET experiencer, spirit medium, and host of Cosmic Passport. Each weekend I'll be bringing you interviews and support from other paranormal experiencers, and the best in intuitive spiritual guidance from across the globe. It's all happening starting at 9 p.m. Pacific Time, midnight Eastern, on spacedoutradio.com.
From British Columbia to Northern California, Pacific North Weird has Cascadia covered. Check out our feature videos at spacedoutradio.com, where I, Vincent Zunza, and my super sleuth partner Alexandra Sullivan track down the weird and strange stories from around the Pacific Northwest. From Bigfoot to Mel's Hole and everything in between. This is what makes life exciting. So why report the normal when we can report the Pacific North Weird? Right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Oh, there's only one way to rock. Loud and proud. In high definition. Radio 702 rocks. Las Vegas.
Every Saturday and Sunday night, as Dave Scott wanders aimlessly in the wilderness, you can come hang out with me, James Tyson, in Spaced Out Weekend. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I'll take you along as we talk with some of the best experts in their fields. SpacedOutRadio.com is the place to find us. So sit down, relax, put your feet up. Enjoy the topics like the paranormal, supernatural, intuitiveness, and so much more. Hope to see you there.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
You gotta love Bumblefoot cranking in the background. Tomorrow night on Spaced Out Radio, MJ Bandias will be with us. MJ Bandias. We're going to be talking UFOs over Canada. It's going to be a great show because you know me, I love my UFO talk. 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. Hey, we want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. Appreciate you taking the time to tune us in. We're also live on the United Public Radio Network on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. Thanks so much for being with us as well. We are live in Las Vegas on Renegade Talk Radio. We're also live on KTLK, The Fringe FM, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Vicambulate. Vicambulate is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets the password each and every night, right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter, at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect with me live during the show as well. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can tune us in on TuneIn. Download this show and others on iTunes. We're also on TalkStream Live, Player.fm, RadioGuide.fm, and Stitcher. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. Yes, a plethora of features, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month. You can buy yourself a Space Out Radio t-shirt at our new SOR store, or if you're looking for something to read, check out The Encounter Online, put together by our editors, Everett Thiemer and Eric Markham. Tonight, it is Strange Days, the final Monday of every month, with Butch Witkowski from UFOcop.com. Butch, welcome back.
I'm here, ready to go.
Now, right before the break, you were asked a question in regards to whether or not dogman or werewolves had been reported in killing anybody. You mentioned one. You said you had another story for us.
Okay, the other one is, the only other one that we ever found was, at first it was attributed in the original reports as a Bigfoot. And then the reports over a period of some years changed. And this was two trappers up in the northern western part of the country, fur trappers who had set up camp. One guy went out to check his traps. The other guy stayed there to make supper and take care of the dogs. And when the gentleman gets back from checking the traps, his partner is pretty much ripped to shreds. 4 or 5 of the dogs are mortally wounded. A couple are slightly wounded. And as he's trying to do what he has to do at the moment, nothing for his partner, but for the dogs, which a couple of them he had to put down immediately because they were missing parts. And he got the other dog secured. He turned around, and what he described standing in the bushes not too awful far away, like 50 yards or less, was a large wolf that was standing on its back legs.
Wow, that's eerie, man. That is eerie.
And he loaded the wounded dogs into the camp was totally destroyed. He loaded the wounded dogs into the canoe, got downriver, got the police. They went up, retrieved the body and the dogs, and the cause of death was he was mauled to death.
Right.
A bear wouldn't maul you to death. A bear would eat you. So this guy wasn't eaten. He was just ripped apart.
That is insanely scary. Insanely scary. I got some questions coming from the audience here. And Shar made a comment here, but I'm going to use it as a question. Do you believe that many of these creatures that people are seeing could be some sort of government genetic experimentation gone bad?
Yeah, well, yes, and I will relate 2 stories to that. One was some Bigfoot researchers that I know very well were in their research area. It was very dark. It was at night. It was over a weekend, and they're walking down a trail, and out from the corner of the trail, one side of the trail, comes a military guy dressed in full combat gear, night vision glasses, radio, and M4 rifle, and he sees them and they see him, and it's kind of like they go, well, hello, and he goes like, yeah, hi, I'm just out hunting bear, and turns around and disappears back into the woods. First of all, you can't hunt bear with a full automatic rifle in the state of Pennsylvania. Neither would anybody be wearing night vision goggles, radios, and all that other equipment that he had on him. And not far from that area is a location that at one time was a nuclear plant that was developing nuclear engines for small aircraft, but was closed back in the late 90s, 98, 99 if I recall, and people in more than one instance have said that they've run into military guys in full combat gear. There are no military installations in that total area of a couple hundred miles. And why would he be alone? And the other one is happened down in Maryland, where it was actually a factory that was converted into a laundromat for a local county prison. So all the sheets and pillows and all that stuff that had to be, clothing had to be washed, was taken to this laundry. And the laundry, of course, had these huge gates and barbed wire and fencing all the way around it. And a driver who was making a delivery backed up to the dock, got his way inside, and was walking around looking for somebody to tell him he was there to make a delivery. He couldn't find anybody right away. And he just was staring at a door that didn't look right to him. And when he describes what he was looking at, he said it looked like there was something inside trying to get out. And it was a steel door, and he said it was all beat to hell. And while he was looking at it, a guard walked up and said, "What are you doing here?" And he said, "I'm here to make a delivery." And he said, "What do you got in there?" And he said, "It's none of your business. Let's go get your load," and unloaded him and sent him on his way. That building originally was a government property.
Interesting. That's quite the tie-in.
Hmm.
Is that just coincidence?
I don't think so. Look, Russians messed with this stuff. Germans messed with, during the war, messed with this stuff. I'm sure we've messed with this stuff as far as, creating the super soldier or the combat personnel that were pretty much indestructible, or who knows? I mean, you'll never know it, but would I put it past them? No, not really.
Wow. Okay. Let's move on to another question here. This one comes from Pandora. She says, "Butch, if you ever find proof of these creatures, what do you plan on doing? Do you tell the scientists or keep your knowledge a secret so they won't kill it and experiment on it?"
Well, probably the only thing we're going to be able to do is get photographs of it or some type of evidence that it exists. And that could be anything from footprints to a hiding place, but most likely it's going to be some type of photographic evidence, whether it's digital cameras or surveillance cameras or infrared cameras or FLIR devices, heat-seeking thermal imaging. With that proof in hand, you can always take it to wherever you need to take it at that point, whether it's a biological lab or the authorities or whoever. Then again, we may present the evidence and be politely told to shut up and go away. But I will be very careful where the evidence goes, and I don't think that we would ever give up the location for any circumstance. I'm not into writing books or papers or anything like that would expose something like that. It might increase our research area, but as far as making a big deal out of it, going on television or something like that, that's not going to happen. Because we don't know what it is, and if it doesn't hurt anybody, we're not out to hurt it either. We just want to go out and prove it's there. And it's just like, when people are hunting Bigfoot, they say, well, the only way you're going to know is if you kill one. Well, pretty much the only way you're going to know is even if you can find one. That's number one. Number two, if you can photograph it, that's, or it's such a number of people that see something at the same time. And there's all kind of scenarios as to how to get it, but it's going to be dumb luck. It's going to be, we're going to have the cameras all set up in the right spots at the right time, and the evidence will be right there. Maybe we won't ever see it. The cameras will, but maybe we won't. And that's another thing. So you spend all this time, effort, and energy and money going out there looking for this thing, and you don't get to really see it, but, you have it on film or you have it on thermal imaging, and nothing hides from thermal imaging. I don't care what it is. If it's there, it's there. And then just take it to somebody and say, okay, now you explain to me what I just saw or what the camera just took, and take it from there. It's hard to say, but that's kind of the way I think it's going to work out. It's going to be something that's caught on one of the cameras, one of the sophisticated cameras, that's going to nail it. Because the only thing we got is technology. I'm not going to go run through the woods chasing this thing. I don't even know, where would I start in 68,000 acres? That's number one. And number two, I'm too old for that crap. So I'm just going to sit there and let the technology do the work. But on its side, it has stealth. So now, can it appear and not appear? Can it materialize itself and dematerialize itself? Is it flesh and blood? Is it not flesh and blood? Don't know that yet.
Let's get to a question from Gail here. Gail is asking, when you can see that people are not telling the truth, do you tell them they are full of nonsense?
No, that's just, I just take what they say, I write down. It'll be discussed between myself and the investigator that's with me, or investigators that are with me, and that's as far as we go with it. I'm not going to stand there and get in an argument of, well, I'm telling you the truth and you're calling me a liar and blah. I'm not going to do that. That's just a waste of time, effort, and energy. They'll know pretty much by my questioning, or maybe the look on my face, that I know they're full of it. But no, I don't antagonize anybody. I just let it go at that, take the information and go on my way.
Well, let's get into Sasquatch and Bigfoot and a lot of these other creatures. How come we rarely ever hear reports of hearing these creatures coming into contact with each other and maybe brawling it out for territory or food or something along those lines?
I've been asked that question, I'll bet you 100 times already. Like, is it Bigfoot and this bipedal, are they enemies? I mean, I don't know that. I mean, there's no way I would know that. Unless, I found one of them limping out of the woods with crutches and his hand in the cast or something. I don't know. Could they be territorial? Yeah, I guess they could be, but one of the things that always intrigued me, even when we started setting up our research areas and started, putting everything on an interactive map where we saw every report, the Bigfoot sightings mainly are in southwestern corner of Pennsylvania and going up along the Ohio border and into Ohio, where the bipedal canine reports are pretty much south central to north central in kind of a northwesterly direction. And we don't have like a Bigfoot report here and a bipedal report there. No, it's just not there. Matter of fact, when we tried to do that and place the Bigfoot reports into that research area, what we call the lichen loop, they were non-existent. We found one or two way back, and when I say way back, I mean way back in time, where somebody just said, well, very large, hairy man. Well, that could be a Bigfoot or that could be a bipedal. But as far as the two of them going at each other, haven't had any reports like that. Haven't found any reports like that. We haven't found any reports where they're in the same neighborhood.
Let's get to a question from Ron. Ron is asking, Butch, have you ever investigated anything that has made you keep a secret due to the connection that was made?
Yeah, twice.
Want to share your secret?
Not right at this moment. Let's just put it this way. A case that we worked on and are still working on was leading us in one direction. And if it had not been for and totally out of the blue contact that was made to me by email and then a phone conversation following by a very reputable individual, it would have been something that I didn't know, was never reported, but had a lot to do with the case. And eventually it will come out. But right at the moment, probably about as much as I want to go with it. And then the other one was, or is, an active case also, where something was seen, but the description was kind of backwards, if you follow me. It didn't make any sense. And then, again, that was almost a year and a half later, I got a contact, and I guess somebody read about the report on our website or something, that it was an open report, and they said they needed a phone call. And I made the phone call and was talking to the gentleman, and he said everything I was doing was proper, but I was looking in the wrong place. And I said, well, what makes you say that? He said, because I saw it too. And I said, okay, so where should I be looking? He said, you're looking at the wrong mountain. And he said, if you go to this location and you go up this certain road, you're going to be really shocked what you see. And I did that, and I was shocked what I saw. And it's definitely not a commercial endeavor that I saw. And it's in the deep woods, and it really doesn't belong there, but it is there. So I grabbed a quick few photographs and got my ass out of there before, somebody came up on me, because when I was there, as I was walking toward one section of this place, I saw a red light flashing. So I don't know if it was taking pictures or if it was just me setting off some type of a trespasser alarm. So I got out of there in good health, and but that's another one that'll eventually come out, and there won't be any denying it, because I have the photographs, and they are good photographs.
Right.
That's the only two times I can really say that, I found something that I wouldn't talk about.
Right. No, I can understand that. And, we all have our experiences that, we just can't give up. I mean, there's certain things that happened in my radio career. When somebody goes off the record, you just can't go with that. And there's certain information you need to hold tight just for further confirmation. And that's fair. And that is something that I would personally do as well. But when it comes to these creatures, how do we get good information out if everybody thinks that what is released is CGI, is good animation, maybe bad animation, if you consider that everything is blurry all the time, whether it's video or photograph? What would be considered good information in your personal opinion then? Let's say if you're looking on the outside like 99% of us are.
Well, one of the things that always struck me, even very early on when I got involved in all of this, was the fact that, there were very, very few photographs of UFOs that were good. Most of them were blurry, or they were too far away to be identified, or they were just a spot in the sky. And then I was talking to a very old-time researcher one time at a conference, and he was the one that kind of set me straight on photographs and stuff. He says, look, don't rely on your eye or let the camera do its work. And he said, the more cameras, the better cameras, the better chance you have of getting something good. And, of course, using a bipod and tripods and all this stuff. And I followed his advice, and we were out on a Star Watch one time, a couple investigators, myself, and we got some great pictures. I mean, really good stuff. And we didn't touch those cameras. Everything was automatic. We used remotes to set them off. And the last one, as pictures would be taken, I picked up a camera that was on the table, and I shot it offhand. That camera shot offhand, which was 4 shots, was terrible. You couldn't tell what it was. But the other cameras that were working that were right aside of it took perfect pictures. And that's when I made up my mind that, what you see and what you capture is okay as long as you're the one doing it. But when I get photographs sent to me, and I get them all the time, matter of fact, I just got a bunch from Florida, that took me just a little bit to decipher, but I did get them deciphered. And what somebody did was they took a bunch of pictures of creatures, all kind of creatures, and they started overlaying them one on top of the other, and then they would blur it out, and they would also overlay it with a similar color. So in other words, if he had a green, black, pink, and a red one there, when he was done, his final color overlay was a very pale, looked like a very old photograph would have that kind of brownish tint to it. which also gave the shapes more shapes and sizes and crevices and creeks. And when you first looked at it without doing anything, it looked just like it was an illusion you were looking at of alien faces, okay? And then when I started to take the layers away one at a time, and then I saw the different shapes, connection, and the distortion between the pixels and all that stuff, it pretty much was just those 3 photographs were just started with a bunch of pictures all put together and laid on top of another and laid on top of another and laid on top of another. And so you had the 3 different photographs, but they all looked similar in that they had some type of alien genre to them, and we've seen that before. Or you get somebody that has an abrasion on their arm, and or scratches or something like that. And you know, when you're looking at the picture, you're going like, wow. And you know, they're saying they were abducted and they woke up scratched and stuff like this. And then I'll blow it up anywhere from 200 to 1,000 to 1,500%. And I'm looking at somebody with a bad case of eczema. And then to satisfy my own thoughts, I'll take it to a doctor. And my brother-in-law is one of those. So say, well, what am I looking at here? And you look at it and they're like, case of eczema. You know, you can see the nail marks where the person was scratching. You can see the redness, and you can see this, and dry skin and all that crap. So although CGI and Photoshop are probably responsible for probably 99% of the photographs that are handed out to ufologists and cryptozoologists and the paranormal folks, those things can also be used to unmask them, which they probably never enter their mind when they're doing it. But I proved the point one night on a radio show where a guy said to me, he said, well, how long does it take to make one of these up? I said, well, I'll tell you what, you're going to take your break soon. And they do a 5-minute break. And I said, in your 5 minutes, I'm going to construct something, and I'm going to put it on my website, and you look at it, and you tell me what you see. And while we started the commercial, I got on the other computer, and I took a shot of a little town in Germany, cropped this, blocked that, took this out of the picture. I took what I knew was a fake saucer, took that and put it above the town on an angle, kind of discolored it a little bit, put some clouds in the sky, and I posted it. And I said, what do you see? He said, I see a flying saucer over a town. I said, are you sure? He said, yeah. I said, that's what I just made up. And it wasn't even 5 minutes, maybe 3 or 4. So it's very easy to do, but it's very easy to uncover also. And that's what a lot of these people that spend the money to buy these programs, they think, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to fool everybody in the world. And you get somebody sitting back there that's got a program that'll take that apart in a heartbeat. I've had people take an airplane and crop out the airplane, take it away in a dark sky, and all you see is the collision lights. Well, then they change all the collision lights to one color. And what do you have now? Now they're saying they got a triangle. But when you start unlayering it, and I'm picking up the landing gear, and I'm picking up the end number on the tail, and then when you get back to them with that, then they go like, you never hear from them again anyway, so.
It's just strange. Do you think people are doing that just because they don't believe? Do you think they are doing that because maybe they are disinformation agents or something along those lines? Or do you believe that it's just something that people do for a hobby to screw with others?
I think it's all the above. I think you'll have different disinformation agents out there. You have the wannabes. You have the people that are just trying to make a fool out of somebody. It's all of that. It's unfortunate. Oh, and then of course you have the 15 minutes of fame, folks. But it's not as much as it used to be. I mean, before Photoshop, in most cases, became affordable. When Apple came out with what's it called, Ghost App. You could take Ghost App and get a cemetery, take a picture of a cemetery with your iPhone, with a nice bit of ground fog, and a full moon and a really spooky looking setup, and then go home and take a picture out of your family album of your great-great-great-great-grandfather and put him into that picture. And I want to tell you, it looked like he was there. But, of course, those things also have their faults. So when you start to take that apart, that CGI has now become 2 pictures, and then you'll see it's become 3 pictures and 4 pictures all put together, and all they're doing is layering one above the other, on top of the other, on top of the other. And somebody said to me one time, don't you put these out and show people what they do? I said, no, I don't put them out and show them what they do, or they're going to know how I can figure out what they're doing. Why would I tell them how I'm doing that? Let them put the stuff to me. And then there's some I get, Dave, that I got to tell you, I've tried my darndest. I've sat here for hours and hours and hours, into the wee hours of the morning, and can't change them. So they are what they are. Now, what is it? I don't know, but it's there. The one paranormal picture that just till this day just makes me scratch my head is a guy kept seeing something in a doorway, but when he turned his camera on and went around to take a picture of it, it wasn't there anymore. So what he did then was, and I don't know if I told you the story, but he set up a big mirror. And he saw it in the mirror. So he took a picture of the mirror, and it's there. Exactly as he described it. He could see it, but the minute he picked up a camera and turned the camera toward it, it wasn't there anymore. But when he shot into the mirror where it was, he could see it plainly, it was there. So that's not trick photography.
Gail wants to know, Butch, do you have an end goal? Some point where you will say, there, my work is done?
Yep, there is. When I find out the truth. That's all I'm looking for, the truth. Whether it's ufology or cryptozoology or the paranormal, I'm only looking for the truth.
That's easy to say, and funny, the word truth or truth seeker seems to be all over social media now, and I'll be honest with you, I'm one of the eye rollers when it comes to that, man. I'm one of the eye rollers. But to you, what is truth?
Truth to me is evidence. Evidence is proof. So if you have, if you say to me, Butch, I got a Bigfoot in the area behind my house, and I need help, and I come up to British Columbia, and I get photographs, and I get footprints, and I get hair, and I get all this stuff, and I look at you, and I go like, Dave, you have a Bigfoot in your backyard. That's proof. That's evidence. That's the truth. Now, if I come all the way up there and I do all that stuff and I don't find anything, or, and then I go on a show and say, yep, Dave's got a Bigfoot in his backyard. And somebody's going to say, what's your proof? So I want to have the proof. I want to have the evidence. And those two things, to me, equal truth.
Very understandable. And it makes sense. I mean, because you are one of the rare groups who is actually using science in your investigations, unlike a lot of others who claim they are. So when you are out there then, and you are seeking this type of truth, is it proof that the animal exists, or whatever it is? Is it proof that there is life after death? If you could break it down for us, I think that'd be great.
Yeah. Well, and if it's a Bigfoot sighting, and you have hair that can't be DNA is not on the books. There's no DNA like that. You get scat, and there's the DNA doesn't match that of any known animal, or a footprint that's really good, and not just one footprint. You got a series of footprints, and the stride is much larger, or the weight, the depth of the foot where it's stepped. Would prove a very heavy individual made that. With the paranormal, the video or surveillance video of things going on in a home where furniture moves across the room, or there's visions of a face in a mirror, or and there's nobody in the house. This is all being done with cameras, or there's no human contact involved here. In the sky, objects that go from horizon to horizon, zigzagging across the sky, and you have them, and then in your video or whatever type of camera you're using at that point, it shows it stop and drop, and then kind of come back up on its own, and then shoot in reverse way up into the stars. I mean, where it just disappears. I mean, that's sound evidence. Especially with with these Bigfoot and bipedals or whatever. I mean, it'd be great to find a carcass, but that's not going to happen. If it hasn't happened in 50, 70 years, it's not going to happen today. But if you get the good footprints, and you get the hair, and you get the DNA, and maybe a blood sample or urine sample or whatever you find, or chew marks, say on a dead animal in the woods, that are, when you take it to somebody to have it looked at, they say, well, this is one large wolf you have here, or you have an alligator, because a normal wolf is, say, a bite is 4 inches, and yours is like 6 or 8 inches across and 10 inches long, and there is no animal like that. That's proof. That then you're on the right track, and then you can say, well, okay, so now we got this. And maybe the bone is broken through the bite, and they can tell how much pressure, just like they can with a shark. They can tell how much pressure is exerted on a bite, and they can do the same thing with a bone of a dead animal that's got teeth marks in it. So it's all those oddball things, the more scientific end things, that are probably going to be the answer. I don't see anybody going out nailing pork chops on trees that are going to find anything, other than somebody's going to steal the pork chops and have a barbecue. And I don't see anybody spreading fairy dust or powder, white powder, around in a room, and then standing there with a camera taking pictures of all these orbs and dust flying around. So that it comes down to, is it flesh and blood or is it not? Okay. Now, if it's chewing on something, it has to eat, so it's flesh and blood. If the weight of the animal is way more than what it should be, like if you'd have a bipedal track, which would be very distinct, because of the way the legs would be hocked, only for it to walk. And, your depth gauge is showing that this thing's got to weigh like anywhere from 300 to 500 pounds. That's not a deer. And it's not an elk, even though an elk would probably weigh more than that, or a moose. But the track itself, the track would be totally different. So it's a combination when you're looking for whether it's a bipedal or something ghost or something from the indigenous world, or something in the sky. You have to get all the ducks in a row to make them make sense. You can't skip something like, especially like one that I saw way back, maybe 6-8 years ago, where I watched this thing coming out of the sky, very bright, very white light, and it got closer. It looked like it was slowing down, and I was with a group of people. We were all looking at it, and then it just turned cherry red and shot straight up into the sky. And that's pretty much all my report said, with the exception of I was standing with 4 or 5 different people. And then I'm called by an investigator from upstate, one of my guys, who says, who just made this report? And I said, I did. And he said, well, read the next report down. And I read the next report down. It was identical to mine, identical. The time, because my time was 6:04, their time was 6:03 or 6:05, and they were close to 80 miles away from where I was standing, and they saw exactly the same thing and reported exactly the same thing. So we took that eye measurement of an optical measurement of what we saw from stuff in the area, and we had guys at a lab do the math on it, and they said the object had to be at least 300 feet in circumference. But when I saw it, it looked like it was going to park in the parking lot. But it must have been so far away that those people that were 80 miles from me, north of me, saw the same thing. So how many other people saw that, but there were only ever 2 reports filed, mine and theirs. So it's gathering all the information and then making it all fit. I always relate to people when I speak at conferences. It's like a big puzzle, like your mom used to play with on the table on a Saturday night when the old man was out getting loaded or playing cards, and you'd come over and move that one piece and she'd about half kill you for it. That's what it's like. You get a bunch of pieces and then you start to, in that one corner, and you start to build out from there. Sometimes you don't go anywhere, and sometimes, and you may get that corner started and start working in a really good direction to complete that puzzle, and then it kind of dead ends, and maybe a year or 2 later, somebody pops up with something or some information that lets you pick up that next piece and start and continue on. And that's the exciting part, where I've always said, if you're honest with the person that's making the report, that person eventually, or from the get-go, will be honest with what they're telling you.
Let's get to a question from Michael in the SOR Space Travelers Club. He's saying, Butch, have you ever seen any of those slow-moving plasma balls, and what do you think of them?
Yes, I have, and I investigated a case actually in Oregon. And it floored me because it was investigated by another group, and who shall remain nameless. But the guy's story is very simple. He's an epileptic, so he doesn't work, okay? He takes a lot of medication, which keeps the epilepsy under control, but he does work around the house. So this particular day, to describe the area, he lives in a cul-de-sac. It's about 2 blocks long, and then you make the turn and come right back out the same way you went in. Homes on either side. When you come out, it comes to a T-road. And if you went straight ahead, you would come to a farm fence. You go over the fence, you're in a field. You go up into the field, about the middle of the field, a few hundred yards away, there's a large clump of trees. He's out cutting grass, and he sees this object, which he described as a large ball, go behind the trees. So he just kept staring at it, and he said, a little while, he sees a smaller ball come out from behind the trees down toward the ground, comes around, comes across the field, comes up over the fence, comes up the road. It passes within 6 feet of this guy. He said, I could reach out and touched it. I said, describe it. He says, about the size of an adult-sized beach ball. Clear. He said it looked like a series of lava lamps inside, with all the gooey going on inside of a lava lamp. And he said it went over to a manhole cover, and sparks started flying from the manhole cover up to this orb. Then it went over and attached itself up against a power pole, and again the sparks and everything were carrying on. All the neighborhood dogs were going nuts at this point. There's neighbors out on their front porches looking at it because they're going to see what the dogs are barking about. It's a very quiet neighborhood. It comes down from the pole, goes back over top of the manhole cover, poof, and it's gone. A few minutes later, the larger orb behind the trees goes up and shoots up into the sky. Now, the investigators come on the scene. They take one picture of the street going up toward the end of the cul-de-sac, and they take one picture from in front of his house to the clump of trees. I said, did they take any samples? Are there any more manhole covers? He went, yeah, there's 2 going further up the street. I said, did take a control sample maybe off of those 2 and take one of the scrapings off the one that it was attached to? No. I said, did they take anything from the pole? He said, no. I said, did they ask for your clothing? He said, no. I said, I don't know what to tell you. I said, but I surely would have taken samples, control samples, of those 2 manhole covers, and then taken a sample of the one where it was on top of, plus the pole, And I said, I probably would have bought you a tuxedo, but I want your clothes, all of them. He said, as a matter of fact, he said, I'm wearing them right now. He said, at least the shirt. And I said, were there any side effects after this took place? He said, well, he said, I didn't have any seizures. He said, but I was sick for 3 days. And I said, sick as in? He said, I couldn't hold anything down. I kept throwing up. And I said, did you tell that to the investigators? He says, yeah. And the gentleman that actually sent this gentleman to me to relate the case had the actual copy of that report that was filed by the other investigators. It said nothing of what the man told me. Nothing. And I got a hold of the one investigator and talked to him, and he says, well, we didn't think it was important, but we had to show up. I said, you showed up 6 weeks after it happened. He said, yeah, well, time is money. And that was the end of the conversation. So if that's the kind of people you have out there investigating this stuff, the folks like me that are out there are going to find out a lot sooner than these guys are, because they're not doing anything. But that was an interesting case. I mean, and there was another thing. There was like I forget how many months lapsed between when it happened and when I was called. And we've talked a couple times since over the years, and his story hasn't changed one bit. Matter of fact, he was so set aside by what I said about his clothes that all the clothes he was wearing that day, he put in a plastic bag, and he has them in a cooler in his basement. He said, in case anything goes wrong. I said, okay. But that's the kind of stuff that's out there. I mean, there's really good... there was perfect evidence. I mean, come on, you have this orb, this sphere that's doing something above a manhole cover, and then by a pole, you got multi-witnesses, you got dog reaction, you got somebody gets sick, it goes past the guy that's 6 foot away from it, so whatever possibility of getting something on his clothing was pretty much there. Nobody even suggested taking the clothing. And so there was a case that was probably a good one that went by the wayside because of somebody's non-due diligence.
Do you believe there is an alien connection with cryptids?
You know, that could be only because of reports where credible researchers have been following something like through the snow and in the middle of a field, and then the footprints just disappear in the middle of a field. So what would cause that? I mean, there's no trees, it didn't jump up in a tree, it didn't do this, didn't do that. So how do you explain you're following tracks from where it was seen the first time and through a field covered in snow, and you're photographing the tracks, of course, and taking whatever you got, and then all of a sudden they stop. They're not there anymore. They're just gone. There's no wind. There's no drifting snow or anything like that. They're just gone. Kind of hard to explain. Is there a possibility that there may be a portal of some sort or a connection to things not of this earth? Yeah, I guess it's possible. You'd have to prove it, but then again, how would you prove that?
And trust me, I can understand that, and that is something that I have a weird fascination with, because, I mean, we have heard stories of people who say, you know, when they have been abducted by aliens, they've seen Bigfoot on ships, or they've seen spaceships flying around in the sky, shooting their lights down into the trees, and then heard the sounds of, like, big animals crashing through the trees like they're trying to get away. There have been reports about that. I'm sure you've heard them.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah. Mm-hmm. there have been reports of and video. I'm not sorry, video, but sound recordings taken of stuff that professionals that do that stuff for a living can't identify. They say, "Oh, it's not a coyote, it's not a wolf, it's not this, it's not that, it's not this." Okay, what is it? I don't know. Never heard it before. In our research area, where the park ranger tells me that he's been there for 12 years. He's heard every animal that they have in that whole gigantic, massive forest area. He can identify them just by their sound. But there was one time, he said, where he heard this ungodly, angry, screaming, like something was really pissed over by the swamp area. He said, "I can't go by the swamp area because you're at the bottom of a very large mountain and sound carries, so it could be in any direction it came from, but that's what I heard." And then I said, "Did you ever hear it again?" He said, "No." I said, do you kind of remember when approximately this happened? He said, "Oh, well, it was November of last year." I said, "Beginning of the month, end of the month, middle of the month?" Kind of remember any of that? He said, "It was probably end of the month." He said, "Because I was still cleaning up some of the campground leaves and stuff like that." And I said, "Okay." Now, I didn't say that to him, but our first report of the bipedal was November 21st, 2014, at that location.
Do you then buy into the theory that it is plausible that aliens are after our weird creatures or maybe dropped them off here?
Could, sure, why not? You got to keep an open mind. I mean, if I just believe the storyline that's been out there for eons, I would say no to everything like that. I can't say no because I don't know. I don't even have an opinion. Is it possible? Anything is possible. I mean, nobody thought the atom bomb was possible. It happened. Nobody thought it was possible to put a man on the moon. It happened. Or satellites to Saturn or wherever. Can't do it. It happened. So anything's possible. Could these be interdimensional beings? Could they be coming through some type of portal? Could there be drop-offs? Who knows? I mean, it's just, you can't not keep an open mind about it, because if you close your mind off to that stuff, you might miss the whole thing right in the middle. And there could be your answer, or something close to an answer anyway.
Do you think that that theory is way too far-fetched for a lot of researchers out there to even comprehend?
For the older researchers, yes. For the newer researchers, no. The older researchers have their tried-and-true methods, according to them. And they, look, you could go out and bump into any group that's been out for a long time, and you won't find a decent camera. You won't even find a decent pair of binoculars. I mean, equipment is the same equipment they've been using for 30 years, 40 years, and that's the way it is. I talked to a researcher not too long ago who's been at it for 50 years out in northwestern Pennsylvania, northwestern California. He said, we've been doing this now, him and his little group of 5 people, been doing this for many, many years. He said, who walks through the woods and hammers on woods with sticks and axe handles? I said, well, pretty much everybody. He says, we've never done that, ever. He said, we have a sighting area that we've had a number of sightings in. We go there, we sit, and we watch. And we wait. And we record. And we photograph. And I said, are you happy doing that? And he says, yep. I said, so running through the woods throwing donuts and all this other stuff does not interest you in the least? He went, nope, ain't going to do it. He said, if you were chasing me through the woods with a pickaxe, do you think I'd sit there and wait for you? No. He said, I'm going to go hide somewhere or just walk away and let you chase your own tail. So even in the groups, well, I don't care what they're doing out there, everybody has their own way of doing things, and the older guys just seem not to change. But the new groups that are coming up, the younger groups, I'm talking about these guys that they're computer savvy. They know how to research stuff. They know how to use the internet to their advantage. They know what good equipment is. They'll invest in that good equipment. They know how to. They know how to use it. They know how to take. They can take fingerprints. These guys are the younger upcoming men and ladies that are doing this is just. I love to see it. I mean, it just amazes me that, and I don't know if it's their interest or they're just their curiosity in finding out if they can find the answer, which is good too. But it's really cool to watch them work, and I've watched a couple groups like that work, and they're really good at what they do. I mean, they're doing stuff that I'm going like, why didn't I think of that?
We only have about a minute or so left until the break. Butch Witkowski is our guest tonight. Butch, do you still have fun doing this?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah, I live for this crap. I mean, if I got a call right now in the middle of this show, I'd probably excuse myself and take off. I love it. It's the hunt for the unknown. It's something that I know when I go out there with one of my guys or two of my guys or 10 of my guys, nobody else is doing it. We're doing it. They're not doing it. We're doing it. And we get to sit there and decide what we want to do, how we want to do it. How are we going to set up camera traps? How are we going to look here? What are we going to check there? I might have one guy in a computer in a truck research that whole area, pulling up maps, pulling up quadrants from a topo map, or valleys that we can't see, or lakes or rivers or streams that are close by that we don't see. I mean, it's exciting, it's fun, and I enjoy it immensely.
And on that note, my friend, we are going to step out for a break here at the top of the hour. Butch Witkowski is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Strange Days happens the final Monday of every month. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be back right after this. Looking for a great weekend getaway this fall? Hi there, this is Dave Scott. Come on up to the heart of British Columbia for the first annual Spaced Out Radio Caribou Paracon, being held at the Spruce Hills Spa and Resort in 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Speakers from all over North America are coming to discuss Bigfoot, UFOs, ghosts, and intuitiveness for the 3-day event, September 29th to October 1st. For more information, go to spacedoutradio.com and click on the Caribou Paracon banner and book your tickets today. Come to BC, where the paranormal is waiting for you.
The SOR Sightlines is a place for you to find answers to your strange experiences. Hi there, this is Mike Schmidt. If you have had an encounter with ghosts, UFOs, Bigfoot, ETs, or anything else that doesn't make sense, head to spacedoutradio.com and file a Sightlines report. All information you give is 100% confidential, and I will personally help you find the answers you need. SOR Sightlines, your answers are a click away.
Have you got your Cosmic Passport? If you need one, tune in to Cosmic Passport on Spaced Out Weekend. This is Elizabeth Anglin, ET experiencer, spirit medium, and host of Cosmic Passports. Each weekend I'll be bringing you interviews and support from other paranormal experiencers, and the best in intuitive spiritual guidance from across the globe. It's all happening starting at 9 p.m. Pacific Time, midnight Eastern, on spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with UFO Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
This is your medium, Joanna, from Spaced Out Weekend, 2 Mediums and a Large. I would love it if you would come and join us with host James Tyson every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. Together, we will take your calls and your questions live. Our goal is to provide you with a positive outlook on deep questions that you may have. Questions regarding love, relationships, money, or whatever else is on your mind. Come and check us out at spacedoutradio.com.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories. From alien encounters to the latest conspiracies, you won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that will leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back to hour number 3 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you along for the ride. Thank you so much for being with us. Tomorrow night on the program, we're talking UFOs over Canada. Researcher MJ Banias is going to join us. It's going to be a great show indeed. I hope you all join us starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on the United Public Radio Network on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. Thank you so much for tuning us in. We're also live on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We appreciate you taking the time to join us as well. We are also celebrating the password of Bill Cardwell tonight because I got it right in the first hour. I'm going to do it again, Bill. Vicambulate. Vicambulate is your password for tonight in the Spaced Out Radio SOR Space Travelers Club. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as we have it going on each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to tune us in on TuneIn, you can do so. You can also find us on radioguide.fm, player.fm, and Stitcher. We're all over social media on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. You can use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio as well if you want to connect with us live during the show. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. And, of course, our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. Yes, a plethora of features, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month. You can pick up some SOR swag in our brand new Spaced Out Radio store. And if you have read The Encounter online, great. If you haven't, check out our news site put together by our news directors, Everett Thiemer and Eric Markham. Strange Days with Butch Witkowski happens the final Monday of every month. Butch's website is uforcop.com. That's UFORCOP.com. The next time Butch will be on the show will be June 26th. That's when we will be talking more of the cryptid world. Butch, welcome back.
Thank you, sir.
What's the best piece of evidence you've ever got?
Best piece of evidence. Well, a few photographs, but the best piece of evidence was some clippings, grass clippings, from a orb that was pretty low to the ground and caused a burn area. And we took it to a lab, and they said it was what caused the burn was something of extreme heat, because the grass at the top, and it was pretty long grass, 4 or 5 inches, the tops were pretty much charcoaled, and the bottoms were, almost down to the root burned. That was probably the best.
What do you think caused that?
Well, I'd have to go by what the people said, which was a small orb, not much bigger than a soccer ball. Was glowing bright white. It got close to the ground, like within 3 feet, and then kind of shook a little bit, shimmied or whatever you want to say, and shot straight up into the sky.
Oh, wow. Not very angelic.
No. No, I wouldn't think so. But, and it was a very small area. It was only, the actual burn area was only maybe 16, 18 inches in circumference, but it was a perfect circle.
Gail has a question for you. When you go out into the field, are you armed?
We carry non-lethal weapons. The same weapons that would be used at a zoo to control an animal that got out of whack. We can chase off a bear, a wolf, anything like that. It's they're air compressed. They're .68 caliber. They shoot a riot ball. Police use them. Fire departments use them. So it's a non-lethal weapon, and we have a rifle and a sidearm pistol.
Do you ever feel in danger? Have you ever felt in danger?
No. Mm-mm.
That surprises me, considering you're going into some weird territory.
Well, you know what? I thought about that one time, and I figured, why wasn't I? And it probably boils down to your mind is going so fast in so many directions, trying to figure out what you're doing, what you're looking for, what could be, what could not be. Was this possible? Is that possible? Is this the right spot? Or is that, should I look over there? Or, you got so many things going on that fear factor really doesn't enter into it. Now, if I come face to face with something, that could change real quick. But no, I never felt that. Never felt anything like that. No.
Have you ever discussed with other researchers if they have had that fear or felt the need to pull out their firearm?
I've talked to researchers that actually go into the field with firearms, and pretty heavy stuff: 44 Magnum pistols, 30-06 rifles. That's their choice. I can scare off a bear with ghost gas or pellets. Riot balls just as quick as they could kill it. So I'm not out to kill anything. I'm only out to look for evidence and the truth, so I can prove what I'm looking for. If they feel they have the need to drop something and drag it home, that's their choice. We've always been of the non-kill mind, no matter what we come across. So.
Have you ever felt that you have been close to being near one of these creatures?
Yes. Our very first excursion, too many strange things happened in a very short period of time that can't be explained. And we probably came down to figuring out that even though we didn't see it, it was close by and it was probably watching us.
What's that feeling like for people who have never had that feeling, Butch?
It was really all after the fact when we were basically on our way home and discussing, the whole weekend. And the weird things that happened, like, we're in the middle of thousands and thousands of acres of heavily wooded area that have deer, elk, mountain lion, wolf, coy wolf, coyotes, birds of every type, predator birds, predators of all kinds, snakes, everything that walks or crawls. We didn't see anything, nor did we hear anything, and it was a full moon, which was very odd, because when I came back that night, I really realized how odd it was. I live in the country, in the middle of Amish country, and I'm surrounded by farms, and I heard coyotes howling when I was unloading my truck. So to be in that heavily wooded area and not hear anything for that whole weekend, nor could we find anything on thermal imaging devices other than one small baby squirrel in a nest. That was the only living creature we saw, and we didn't hear anything. The fact that we couldn't keep a fire going, even using an accelerant. During the day, it was a roaring fire. At night, it was pretty much like every 10-minute thing to restart this thing and keep it going. Wind changes on our weather stations, and from north to south and east to west. And up on a mountain, that's not unusual with thermals, but we weren't on Mount Everest, which is where the only place that could happen. The dead silence. Stone dead silence. You could have locked somebody in a tomb and heard more, probably. We heard no vehicles. We heard nothing flying overhead. We heard no animals of any type, no birds. We didn't hear a thing. It was just stone quiet. It was a weird weekend.
Do you like the feeling of being in the unknown like that, doing this? I realize that you're more of a reactionary team, but do you like being in that environment where you just don't know what's going to happen?
That's a yes and a no. Yes, because I want to know. No, because I don't know what's going to happen. But, I do like being in that environment because it kind of, your mind gets a different mindset Like, you know, in the daytime, you know, you're doing your thing, you're setting up camp, you're doing this, you're putting that up, you're setting this up, and then comes the point where, okay, everything's ready to go, now you got to sit and wait. And that's when you, at least me, I get more attuned to where I'm at and what I'm listening for. Am I going to hear the cameras go off, or am I going to see something moving on the FLIR device or something like that? So, yeah, your mindset changes from, you know, your actual work where you're putting everything together, setting up the camp, putting up the tent, and all that, you know, getting supper started or breakfast or whatever. And then you are now, it's nightfall, and now you're listening, waiting, watching, hoping that something's going to happen. And in that particular case, it was like we didn't realize that absolutely nothing happened until we were on our way home. And we'd only left the area, we were only a few miles away when that kind of hit us. And like, we realized that the things that we should have heard, the common stuff, like we should have heard animals of any sort. They got coy wolves that are running in packs. We didn't hear any of that. We didn't hear any coyotes. It's a full moon. I mean, everything should have been moving around. And then I remembered something that the indigenous told me when I was talking to them about it last year, or year before last, actually, where the guy said, whenever there's a predator in the area, all else falls quiet. Dead quiet. So we didn't see any predator, I mean, with, you know, like a bear or anything like that, or coy wolves or anything. But we did feel and hear that dead silence, and which, if I go by what they said, could have been sitting at the edge of the tree line just watching us. I wouldn't have known it, but the animals know it. The animals know when there's a predator in the area, and their job is to be quiet, stay still, and it was quiet and still.
Is it usually when the forest goes silent like that is when you really have to start watching things?
Yes. Yeah, we learned from that first experience that when you don't, not like if we go someplace, we hear everything moving around or anything, probably there's nothing in the area that they're worried about. But when you get to a spot and it's dead silent, I mean, there's nothing heard, nothing seen, nothing moving, there's a good chance there's a predator close by. And it could be any type of predator. I'm not saying it's a bipedal canine. It could be anything. It could be a mountain lion. It could be a pack of coy wolves. But even with those things, you'd see eye shine. You know, if they were walking through, especially with the FLIR devices, we'd pick up heat signatures, and we didn't get nothing. It was just dead silent, cold steel, done.
Do you believe then, as we talked earlier about the connection between UFOs and cryptids, do you believe that there may be a tie between haunted land and cryptid sightings?
Yeah. There's just too many stories, too many reports that go way, way back of indigenous areas or areas where there was a great loss of life. Where things are not as they should be. And when I say that, as they should be, I mean noise or traffic with animals or humans or anything else. The dead silence or the strange lights in the sky or in the woods or glowing objects in the woods that are only seen for a second or two and they're gone. I mean, there's no reason for any light to be out in the middle of that type of acreage, thousands and thousands of acres, and just disappear. So is there something out there that can see you but you can't see it? Or is it something that's put there that's watching you? Or is it something that is there that is watching you? We don't know that yet, but we're trying our damnedest to find out.
So what's your theory?
My theory at this point and it's only a theory, is I'm dealing with, in particular with the bipedal canine, I'm dealing with something that has been out there for a very, very long time, and it's a relic. Who knows how long it's been there, but it's been there probably way before, I'm going to go back centuries and centuries and centuries, and it's been there, and it's always been there, and it's going to be there. Now, whether it's a watcher or an indigenous guardian or something from our space brethren, that I don't know, but there is something there. That I'm sure of that. I mean, to have the amount of people and the amount of reports we got, and I mean, we're talking about people, they're counties apart, hundreds of miles apart, that describe exactly the same thing. No different. There's no differentiation in their reports as far as what it looks like, how it acts, how they felt when they did come in contact with it. And it's there. I just got to figure out how to see it or photograph it or do something that I can prove that it does exist. Now, how long it's been there, that I can't tell. And if it hasn't been located in all these millennial time span, my only hope is to get it on some type of technology. There's no other way. I mean, if it is something that could, you could walk past it in the woods, or it could blend in that well. I mean, I've been hunting already and walked by a coyote and I never saw it. I was within feet of it. My partner saw it. I didn't see it. He said, you were 2 foot away from it. Never saw that coyote. So, I don't know. We just keep trying to do the best we can with what we got, and as new technology arises, we try to get it as quick as we can into the field and hope that it helps us out some.
A lot of people, as we shift gears here, are saying that 2017 is a year where we have seen a huge increase in UFO sightings and alien abduction. Are you noticing this with the reports that you are getting as well, Butch?
Yes, yeah. Abductions have gone up in the last 2 years, at least 10% each year in the last 2 to 3 years. And I checked with a couple of the abduction researchers that's all they do. And they said the same thing. When they looked over their reports, they saw the increase also. UFO sightings have increased a lot, but the more the descriptions come through of like triangles with collision lights, that's not from any place but here. Why would something crossing galaxies need collision lights? That's number one. Number two, even some of the triangle reports are kind of on the weird side because they have, there have been some sightings where it's a triangle, all black, very large, but there's a protrusion coming out the front of it, almost looks like a harpoon. I don't know what that's all about. There's 2 or 3 reports of those in eastern Pennsylvania. There are more reports of not so much orbs as objects that are more elongated, flat in some cases, squares, boxes, rectangles, the ones that you didn't get normally before a few years ago. And again, as far as how high they're seen, some are high in the sky, some aren't. Some are at that 10,000, 15,000 altitude. So they're very recognizable. And then you got the ones that are seen that somebody's watching them through binoculars or whatever, and they'll just disappear. Now, that's not ours. Nor are the ones that you see up or higher than airplanes. You know, you'll see a jet at 30,000 or 35,000, and then you'll see something above it that's 3 times the size. That's not ours. We don't have anything like that. But and then you got the scams going on. I mean, you can buy drones now that are in the shape of dragons. You can buy drones that are in the shape of saucers, and you know, when they're high up, 500 feet, 1,000 feet, you can't hear those little motors running, electric motors, and so you got to be careful of those. But they're pretty easy to spot, you know. And before they came out, look, it was Chinese lanterns. That was a big thing, or it was balloons with lights attached to them. So the oddball stuff, which is, you know, the drones, the use of drones, that's something to watch for. But, you know, if you got a decent set of binoculars or you got night vision, you can pick them up right away. But how many people have night vision, you know? So they see something through a pair of binoculars and they're looking at a set of circular lights changing all kind of colors, and then it swoops away. Or it goes up and disappears and goes the other direction. But if you're looking through it through infrared, you can see exactly what it is. And that breaks the hoax. But, you know, the hoaxers and the gamesters will keep playing. But there's the technology out there. We can spot them pretty easily now. Just like with the Japanese lanterns and the Chinese lanterns and stuff. I mean, they were pretty easy to spot when you start looking at the right things. And technology is kind of catching up to the hoaxers real fast. Not that it's meant to, but it just is. I think that the uptake on the UFO reports and the abduction reports has some meaning to it, but I don't know what the meaning is yet. The abduction reports, most of them that I've seen that are shared with me are family things where it was, you know, somebody at a young age and then their family, you know, their children or their grandchildren or their great-grandchildren went through the same thing. And even though they didn't even know what happened in the very first abduction scenario, they went through their own abduction scenario many years later. And those are pretty credible reports, you know, when or somebody finds something in an attic that was written down, you know, long before they were even born. That person's not even alive anymore. And they can relate, or they've told that story before. That's a little spooky.
Do you believe then that people are starting to see a multitude of different ships, or is it the same type of shape that they're using? Because I'm not hearing many triangles right now coming out.
No, right now the thing is the most reports right now are orbs or elongated rectangles that look like a flat box, or a square box, or tubular. Every now and then the classic saucer shape pops up every now and then. But now triangles have kind of fallen away a little bit, where maybe a year or so ago they were like the only thing that was being seen. And now it's just these other things take on. And the stuff isn't low in the sky anymore, where you used to see a lot of reports where somebody say, well, it was just 2,000 or 3,000 feet off the ground, or it was hovering above that building over there. Now they're real high in the sky, and they're very fast moving, where that, for a while, that was pretty much a telltale sign that it was something. And then that kind of died off, and then everybody started, well, it's very slow moving, maybe 35 mile an hour, about the size of a Volkswagen Beetle or something like that. And now they're saying very high in the sky, very fast moving, you know, from here to there, or the the flight patterns are way out of whack, where, you know, they're zipping along and they'll stop and they'll drop, or they'll go straight up, or they'll just vanish. So the sighting reports have changed. And that's just in the last 2 or 3 years, along with the abduction reports, too. They've changed also.
Where are people having these experiences? Are they happening in big cities, or are they happening in rural areas? Where are we seeing these happen?
Most of the reports of UFOs are in rural areas. And I don't mean extreme rural areas like the middle of the Colorado Rockies or something like that. I mean small towns, hamlets, farming areas. Very, very, very few reports of anything from like New York City or Philadelphia or San Francisco. As a matter of fact, I can't even think of one that I've seen in the last year or so. Most of this stuff is, you know, maybe a highway in Utah or out in Colorado or North Texas or something like that, you know, out in the boondocks, not uninhabited, but, you know, away from the big cities altogether.
The people who are experiencing these, do we have a description of what they're like? Are they just normal, everyday people, or are they previous experiencers?
Most of them not previous experiencers. A lot of them just normal, everyday folks, mechanics, you know, nothing like doctors, lawyers, Indian chiefs, or anything like that. I mean, these are just, you know, working people coming home from work or out in the parking lot taking a break on the job, construction sites. Nothing, you know, really high-profile professional type folks. I haven't seen one of those in a long time. Most of the stuff that we see are, you know, a housewife or a family sitting out on the back porch enjoying a barbecue, or, you know, that kind of stuff, or somebody on a playground, or somebody riding a bike on a trail, that kind of stuff, yeah, but, you know, like nobody sitting in Rockefeller Center, anything like that, which is why you don't see flaps. You know, when all these flaps took place, you remember they all took place in very large, very highly populated areas like Philadelphia, New York, San Diego, Florida, where there's just tons of people, and those were the flap areas. But and the definition of a flap is multi-witness sighting in an area within 24 hours. So it's not like you wouldn't call it a flap if a group of people saw something on Monday and then a month later they see something in the same area. Well, that's not a flap. But if it's seen within a 24-hour period and it's multiple witness and all the descriptions are the same, or there's some film or whatever they got, that's considered a flap. I haven't seen a report of a flap in a long, long time. Matter of fact, probably back to 2008 was the last flap I remember. And that was in the Philadelphia area, Bucks County.
Do we know what kind of species people are seeing or having interaction with? Are they able to recall?
Most of the recalls on abduction, people are describing the small grays or a larger gray, or what's commonly known as a reptilian type of being. The reptilian type of being in almost all cases is the leader of the pack, and the others are, you know, like the big guy tells the tall gray what to do, and then he relates it to the little guys who do all the work. And there used to be a lot of reports of multiple beings or entities in a room. Now it's as little as one or two. Those cases where they say there were like 5 or 6 people, you know, 5 or 6 entities in the room. I haven't seen one of those in a long time either. Most of these are 1 or 2. Sometimes where almost always they were seen coming into the property through the wall, through a window, or, they were in the room, they were lifting the people off the bed, they were doing this, doing that. You don't see those cases anymore either. Now it's like the person describes going to bed normally, go brush their teeth, go to the bathroom, shower, whatever, climb in the bed, and next thing you know, they wake up and they're on a craft. And then when all is over, they're either back in bed or they're now on a sofa. They weren't put back where they were taken from. Excuse me. And a lot of those types of reports. But the reports where people would see beings coming through a wall or through a window, or there was bright lights or this, that, and the other thing, don't see many of those reports at all. Now it's like I fell asleep on a chair and I woke up on the sofa, or I went to bed and I kind of remember this happening, that happening, and that's all I remember, except when I got up, went to the bathroom, my pajamas were on backwards. That kind of stuff. But now I don't know if people are just more cognizant of their dreams, or because there aren't any TV shows or books out right now on abduction. Whenever a movie comes out on abduction, the abduction community gets flooded with those things, or there's a book, and whether it's just a horror thing or a monster type thing, well, all of a sudden there's always a pickup with abductions, but there haven't been any of those movies for a while, and I mean, people are just, telling it like it is, what they think happened. And there aren't that many researchers out there anymore, or really. I mean, MUFON has a sizable amount of folks on their abduction team. I think Doc Jacobs is still at it, but I don't know of too many others at all. Kathleen Martin, Denise Stoner, well, they're with the MUFON abduction team, plus they have their own thing they do. And then you have Jacobs. That's pretty much it. There's experiencer groups. There's a bunch of those, but those are folks that have all experienced something, and they have a group where they meet and they talk and they discuss, or they bring somebody in to talk to them. But they're not investigators or researchers. They're just experiencers. They've had that experience, and they discuss it with other folks that have had that experience. And there's quite a number of those groups. There's a big one in Florida. There's one up in the Maine, Massachusetts area that's very large. There's one in California. I think those are the three biggest.
In your opinion, and you've investigated a lot of these, what are the tall tale signs of abduction?
Telltale? Well, there's a number. There's quite a number of telltale. Strange bruises, marks, imprints, black and blue marks in places there shouldn't be, usually in genital areas, with females' breast areas, base and neck, like if you grab an elderly person and just really squeeze real tight on them because of the skin thinness in their age, you would leave black and blue marks where your fingers pushed in. Those kind of marks. Sickness, morning sickness, evening sickness after eating a meal, or nightmares, night terrors, memory lapses, puncture marks, scoop marks, where a flesh has been taken out of a leg or an arm, a painful wound, like you were pinched, somebody took a pair of pliers and pinched your skin real hard, where you'd have a huge black and blue mark and a lot of pain. nosebleeds, bleeding in the gums, bleeding from the ears, missing hair, going to bed with a nightgown or pajamas on and waking up buck naked, and you can't find your pajamas or your nightgown. Just a lot of weird stuff, but stuff that can't be explained easily. I mean, if you went to bed and you're wearing your best silk pajamas and you wake up in the morning, you're buck naked laying there and you can't find your pajamas, what happened to them? So, or like the one gentleman went to bed and got up and went to the bathroom and his pajamas were on backwards, both the shirt and the pants. So he didn't do that by himself at night, sleeping.
Or we have the situation where people wake up in other people's pajamas.
Oh yeah, that's happened. Mm-hmm. Well, there was that case was in. I just read it not too long. It's an older case, but I just read it not too long ago. I believe it was in Cleveland, Ohio, where it's kind of funny when you talk about it. But a guy and his wife went to bed, and he woke up in the morning. He was wearing her negligee, and she was wearing his pajamas. Now that'd be pretty distressing, he said, because he said, I'm 6'2", she's 5'9". He said, can you imagine how hard it was to put this negligee on? I said, that's bizarre.
Everett has a question for you. He is asking, are daytime sightings and abductions on the rise?
Yes. But again, now those daytime sightings are in pretty remote areas. And when I say remote, I'm going to say like the Catskills in New York, or the mountain ranges in Colorado, or Wyoming, Montana, North and South Dakota, the places where there's very few people. And some of those are caught by camera crews for news outfits, some amateur photographers, but very few from people that are looking for them. They're kind of, I call them accidental shots, where it might be a news crew filming something and something goes through the background of the film, or, a photographer's out there shooting a beautiful landscape and all of a sudden he's got something in the picture that he can't identify. A lot of those are accident photographs where they weren't shooting for that. They're not investigators, they're not researchers. They were doing something totally beyond whatever ufology is, and they came up with a shot of something that they can't explain. But those are mostly in very remote areas. Daytime sightings, I would say not as much in populated areas. More of those are nighttime sightings, and a lot of those can be identified as planes and crafts and bolides, meteorites, shooting stars, planets. If somebody's never seen Mars in the sky and they're looking at the moon, they see this red dot on the side of the moon. They don't know what that is. It's actually Mars. And they say, well, it was moving. I said, well, no, that wasn't moving. The Earth is moving, remember? The Earth isn't still. The Earth is rotating. So when you're seeing something disappearing or looks like it's moving out of the way, that's the Earth. That's not something moving. Or Venus. Venus is another one. Between Venus and Mars, I'd say they cover probably 30-40% of the sightings that are taken and photographed. But here's something to keep in mind, that there's one group of people that are out there that have never admitted to or ever seen a UFO. Astrologists, astronomers, high-powered scopes. They can count craters on the moon, but they've never seen a UFO. And you won't get one of them to admit that either. I've tried to get information from different groups that do that all the time, and I never get a call back. They don't want to talk about it. So what are they seeing? And what happens if they do say they saw it? What do they get like? They got to give up their telescope and go home, or what? They get spanked? That's just stupid. They're seeing something. They have to. but they're dead silent. Nothing at all out of that group, ever.
What do you get with the whole hybrid program that people are talking a lot about these days? It seems like the hybridization of humans and aliens the last couple of months has really picked up steam again.
I don't know why that is. There's absolutely no proof of that. There's never been any logical report ever written on hybrids. There are many books on hybrids. There are many movies on hybrids. What was that movie, that television show that was on years ago called X, where they looked just like us, they acted like us, but they were lizards underneath, reptilian type creatures, and then they had offspring that were 50-50 or whatever. It's very hard for me to put that in my head together, because I don't know what it would take genetically to do that, but I'm assuming it wouldn't be easy. And could a race like that have that knowledge? Yeah, I guess they could. But you would think that if there are that many, as people say, running all over the place, that one of them would be discovered sooner or later, either if they cut their finger or they were killed in a traffic accident or at war or anything like that. I mean, nobody's ever produced one, so I don't know. Maybe it tends to lean more toward fantasy and exciting fantasy. That's exciting to think that there may be hybrid people out there. And then people that look strange, that's another thing that bothers me. Somebody has some kind of condition where, their head is misshapen or their limbs are longer or whatever, and they classify them as a hybrid. Kind of weird, but the Zika babies, when the Zika babies were first being born, when that started, the Zika virus, these children who have this very dominant-looking features, didn't take but a week till they were classified as some type of government hybrid. I guess what I'm saying is I don't buy it.
I don't know if I buy it or not, but I don't think that they're running around as much as everybody says they are. I mean, it reminds me of, a few months ago it was the Mandela effect. Before that it was demons, and there always seems to be something popular popping up in this field of investigation. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, because they don't have an answer. So, look, it's a whole lot easier to just throw something out there and let it fly, so to speak, than it is to amass evidence to prove what you just said. And especially, and I'm not saying all the book writers. Some of the book writers really do a nice job, but there are book writers out there that the more fantastic theories they can come up with and push forward in their book, the more books they're going to sell. That's a given. But then when they get cornered on what they wrote, then it's a whole different story. Like, well, that's not exactly what I meant. This is what I meant. Well, no, that's not what you said, and that's not what you printed. This is what you said, and this is what you printed, so what's your proof? And but look, there's a certain amount of people that'll believe anything they're told. There's Martians, there's reptilians living in the Earth, there's hollow Earth theory, there's Nazi bases under the Arctic, and on and on and on, and they really don't offer any proof. Oh, they may show you a picture of this or a picture of that, but you're looking at a picture of the Arctic, and somebody drew a circle around a patch of that snow-covered, ice-covered area, and they say, right there is the Nazi base. No, right there is a patch of ice with snow on it. That's what I see. Now, if there was a base there and buildings and roadways and stuff like that, that's a different story. I mean, for years people said, the dark side of the moon was inhabited by Nazis from World War II Germany. Then the Japanese took a satellite around the moon and they didn't find nothing. The famous photograph of the crashed, quote-unquote, alien vehicle on the moon, when it was really deciphered and all the garbage was taken out of it, it turned out to be a rock formation. That was it. But up until just a couple years ago, that picture was very famous as being an absolute alien spacecraft that crashed on the moon. It's everybody's belief system, I guess, is the only thing I can come up with.
And I understand everybody is going to have their own beliefs, but at what point, as we all seek, credibility, does this not harm us?
Oh yeah, it does, sure. And it harms every investigator out there, every researcher out there. I mean, there's a guy in Puerto Rico who is not involved in ufology at all. But he has a theory that he's been working on now for a number of years on animal mutilations and how they take place and why. And he doesn't have a damn thing to do with UFOs. But he's looking at certain things that are identical in every case that he's followed in our country, in your country, and out of the country. And, he says, he sent me some of his stuff, and I looked it over. And he said, do I think it's possible? I said, I'm no scientist. I said, but what you're saying does make sense. They say the cattle mutilations, they want food, or they want this, or they want that. He says, what I've seen is the things that are taken are very high in this certain protein. And it's the same in every case, pretty much. And he's working on the protein angle. So what is that protein when it's broken down? What can that do for anything? An animal, another human being, or a human-like being? What benefit would that protein be to them? And he's still at it. He's been at it quite a while. So there are people looking for an answer in ways that aren't the norm, the binocular barbecue in the backyard type thing. And I always tell people, I said, look, it's nobody's telling you, and neither am I, telling anybody to change their beliefs on what they are, or what they could be, or what they aren't. And that's cryptozoology, paranormal. Is it possible that people, when they pass on, are not at rest, they need to stay around, or for whatever reason? Yeah, it's possible, I guess. Are there things in the woods and in dark, deep places in this country, in this world, that we don't know about? Yeah, that's possible. I mean, could it be man-made? Could it be caused by men? Yeah, it could be. Look at the Dyatlov case. The terminology that ends that case is an unknown compelling force killed those hikers. Well, what the hell is an unknown compelling force? I could hit you in the head with a hammer. That's a compelling force. But an unknown compelling force, what does that mean? So were these hikers caught up in something that was a military experiment maybe, or was it something out of Earth, our space brethren pulled off, or something that has to do with the land itself, the mountain, Mount Orton? There's just so many things that we don't know. And there's so many places that we haven't been. And I often, the movie, The Abyss, okay, always struck me as being kind of, it could be, where in the deep oceans of this world, some type of beings living. Well, yeah, but we haven't. What is it? 10% of the ocean floors that we've actually mapped or been to. Yeah, Milo just said it on the chat. No, I saw it. Deep in the oceans. Yeah, we don't know, Milo. There's areas in the United States that no white man has ever, or human that they can think of, has ever stepped foot in. You know, the Selway Wilderness area up in Montana. There's places there that nobody's ever been to. No white man or Indian probably. Remote areas that have just never been walked on or looked at or investigated or charted or anything else. It's a big world. I mean, how do you explain when a whole village disappears overnight? You know? The men of the village go to work in the morning. They come back and the supper's on the stove, and every man, woman, child, chicken, ox, gone. There's nobody there. And they were never seen again. So where'd they go? Or who took them? Or what happened? There's so many mysteries, and, I mean, you know, my little brain will never wrap my head around all of them, but when you sit and you think about how many mysteries there are out there, and you have all these places that have never been explored. The Himalayas, they figure like 2% of the Himalayas have only ever been mapped by air. They've never been mapped by ground. So they don't even know if some of these valleys are there or not. They're covered with snow. And what's under the snow? Are there other civilizations that were here before us that lived in all these areas? Yeah, it's possible. We don't know. And, you know, exploration takes a lot of money. And unfortunately, I don't have it.
I know that feeling. We have about 2 minutes left with you, Butch. Real tight 2 minutes. I want to get Pandora's question in here. Do you believe then, Butch, these stories that you were told, or are you just saying the stories only come out when there's a movie or a documentary?
No, I believe the stories when they're told. Until they're proven otherwise. Look, if it would be so much easier if every story you told, you could just look somebody and say, like, okay, thank you, goodbye. I mean, that makes it real easy for a researcher and investigator. But you have to take every report separately and as fact, and it's up to you as the investigator to determine whether it's true or not. And besides that, I wouldn't want to embarrass somebody by saying something stupid like that anyway. If people are good enough to give me the information, I'm going to be good enough to research it and investigate it for them. And whatever I come up with, I come up with. If it's a hoax, it's a hoax. If it's a good deal, it's a good deal. And we just take it from there. And that's the only way you can move forward.
I hear you there, my friend. It's time for us to start to wrap this thing up. Butch, where can people get in touch with you?
Facebook, Twitter, our website at uforcop.com. If they need to contact me, they can go to the website or Facebook. Instant message me. We have 3 pages on Facebook. We have my personal page, Butch Witkowski. Then there's the UFORCOP page, and then there's JAAR Magazine, which is the Journal for Abduction Research. Any one of those they can IM me on, and or my email. They can get that if they go to the website, go to contacts. They can fill out an email type form, and that comes right to me, and I check my email religiously. So if they need a phone call or they got something going, they can get a hold of me, and I'm ready to rock.
Right on. And of course, you will be back on Spaced Out Radio on June 26th. Hard to believe another month has gone by, my friend.
Yeah, it goes by fast, doesn't it?
Absolutely. You hold on a second here. I got to wrap things up. If you're listening in on the terrestrial radio side, you hear Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio. He rocks us in and takes us home every single night right here on the mighty SOR. We want to welcome and say thank you to everyone at WQEE 99 Rock the Key for letting us be part of your night. Same as on the United Public Radio Network, Revolution Radio, KTLK, and so much more. We're having a lot of fun here. Remember, go to our website, spacedoutradio.com, where you can find a number of features. A number. Instead of saying plethora, I said a number of features. Our brand new store, where you can get yourself a t-shirt, join the SOR Space Travelers Club, read the Inquirer as well. I want to thank my team, Lana Scott, personal assistant, Everett Thiemer, and Eric Markham from The Encounter Online, Jolene Lammers, web design, Catherine James on social media, Bob Davis, our great intro voice, Kim Gandy, Director of Business Management, and Thomas McGowan in sales. Good to have you all with us. Thank you so much. Remember, friends, tell a friend, because we own the night together. Mr. Bumblefoot, take us home.